Last week talking about the Lost Squadron. I forgot to mention in their last week's lesson that we have a model of the Lost Squadron right in the next room here. You can see the little airplane down there and how far they had to drill to get to it. Those layers are not different ages. That's one of the lies in the textbooks. Also, they tell the kids that the layers of rock that we see in the world, the so-called geologic column, represents different time frames, and that is simply baloney. I was taught this. I believed it as a kid. I thought, well, it's in the textbooks. It's got to be true, you know. The whole geologic column is a joke. All over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, connecting these rock layers. Why on earth would we teach the kids the layers are different ages? I mean, how long does a dead tree stand up before it falls over? Is it possible for the bottom half to petrify and the top to keep growing? I mean, think about it. There's just no possible way this can happen.
Who's on the phone there, Jonathan?
We've got Jared Hogue.
Jared, go ahead, Jared.
Hey, this is our 15th encounter, Kent.
It is. I've not been keeping count, but you're welcome to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so we got about 5 different things that I'd like to talk about, but I'm guessing we're only going to get to talk about 1 or 2 of them.
Sure.
I went and researched the KBS Tuff like you wanted me to.
Okay.
And I prepared a response.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I have an Answers in Genesis article in front of me. Just so whenever you question like my source, I have a source that you would probably agree with, you know? Your contention with this is that it was originally dated to be 212 million years old, right?
Nature magazine, April 1970.
Yeah, but are you aware that there was reasons why that date was suspicious, other than just the fact that it didn't match evolutionary theory?
Okay, can you tell me, are any other dates in our so-called geologic column suspicious, or which dates would you consider absolutely inflexible, proven beyond a shadow of a doubt? Or are all dates suspicious?
What do you mean?
I'm wondering, do they hold to this thing lightly enough that just in case something like this happens again, they could say, oh, well, that date was suspicious too? Yeah, I'm wondering, are all dates
suspicious for chemical reasons?
It was suspicious for chemical reasons?
Yeah. A tuff is a mixture of different types of chemicals, especially this one, and that's why the original dating method didn't work.
Okay. So,
I mean, this is the kind of thing that you expect in science. You don't expect everything to match up perfectly with the theory.
Which article are you reading on Answers in Genesis so I can pull it up in front of me, too?
The Pigs Took It All by Martin Lubnow.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So my point is that they thought it was, you know, that old at first, but then they were like, oh, this doesn't seem to make sense. Now, the difference between science and faith, I would say, is that it is open to falsifiability here. They were considering the reasons why this could have happened. And if it had turned out that other radiometric dating methods had agreed with that date, it would have been a serious problem for evolutionary theory. But the other dating methods did not corroborate that date. They settled down to something around 2.9 million years old. And there's a quibble between, 1.8, 2.9, But the point is, it's not the 200 million level that we're talking about.
Well, let me
Answers in Genesis article is pretty much.
Right. For the sake of the listeners that are new here, let's bring them up to speed. I mentioned that KBS, which stands for K. Brenzenmeyer, KBS Tuff, TUFF, had been dated at 200-some million years old and published in Nature magazine April 1970. And then Richard Leakey found a normal human skull, or a pretty normal human skull, KNMER-14, under the KBS Tuff, which of course raises questions, how can you have humans here 200 million years ago, or is this thing dated incorrectly? Had they not found that skull, I contend they would not have even challenged the date, and it would have gone on, and that would have become an event horizon that other dates would have been determined by. So the whole geologic column is a house of cards, and each of them, I think, is very suspect. Okay,
but don't you realize, Kent, that that's the way science works? You're not going to suspect things are wrong until you have a reason to think that they're wrong.
Well, that's common sense. Okay, what reason do you...
I don't understand your objection, really. I mean, the evolutionary theory is widely accepted, so until it's falsified, of course they're not going to, go around trying to find problems.
Well, before something's published in a science journal, it should be peer-reviewed, and there should be lots of people testing this.
Yeah.
Why didn't somebody catch this before? Why did it end up in Nature magazine? Why didn't the peer-reviewed people catch it?
I don't know. I don't know all the details. I just know enough to answer your critique of it. I know
Okay.
like what the problem is.
When they redated it, they took 10 samples of the KBS Tuff, redated it, and got numbers ranging from 0.54 million to 2.5, if I recall.
Yeah, and that betrays the nature of the problem. I mean, it's a problematic layer.
Okay, so if they're getting a 500% error after testing it again, how do you know any of those dates are right?
None of the dates are right.
Who was it that said that this was securely dated? It was a...
Well, you know, I could even give you a concession about terminology like that. There is sort of a dogmatic, you know, use of language that I don't really agree with. That's really beside the point.
So if it's so obviously wrong, why did they think it was so securely dated?
I don't know. Probably because there was nothing about it that seemed to be a problem anymore.
So
things are
going from their radiometric dating, they didn't see any problems. Everything, you know, came up just fantastic. You know, their radiometric dating gave them the dates they wanted, so they can call it securely dated, correct? And it wasn't until we found fossil evidence to the contrary below it that they caused them to question it, right?
That seems to be the case.
Okay, so how many other radiometric dated things out there that are, quote, secure, you know, should we rely on? If this was secure in their own words, yet we found some stuff below it that just doesn't fit, then how many other ones should we trust?
Okay,
Wouldn't that leave... I mean, if they're saying this is secure, then that's a problem.
And even the new dates, when they get a 500% error, I just think, what a minute. Anybody with a brain ought to stop and think, I think they're breathing smoke here. I don't know that, I don't think it's smoke and mirrors, okay?
No, the reason that the error variance is so wide is because it's a problematic layer. The chemistry is very mixed in and bizarre.
Okay.
It's not like your typical layers.
Right. Can you tell me a layer that is not problematic where you would be secure in the date?
Most of the ones that are, you know, typical geologic column things like Cambrian, Silurian.
I'm still looking at this article that you sent me to, Jared, here, and these people were very, very confident that this worked. Not only did they use radiometric, you know, dating, they used paleomagnetism.
Right.
That gave them a similar age as well.
Yeah.
So why are they getting all these, you know, same ages if it's wrong? If it's wrong?
Yeah. So the article from Answers in Genesis is the point of the article is that. The gist of the article is basically what you and Ken are trying to say, which is that the evolutionary theory gets to trump the other criteria that they identified, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, the theory itself.
The contention here is that the pig bones won over the other evidence, right?
Right.
And you know, there may be a point about that. That may be kind of stupid. I'm not going to debate that. The point is that it's no longer an issue of 212, 230 versus 2.9. All the dates are centering around something in the low millions. So there's at least some kind of convergence here. It's going to be somewhere in that range.
How do you know that? I mean, what if it turns out to be 4,000?
It doesn't look like it.
Well, maybe not with those dating methods. Now, you were going to tell me about a week ago when you called in, I believe you were the one, I asked you, how do you know our layer is Cambrian?
Yeah, and I can respond about that, too. It's not just trilobites. There's actually a couple of different fossils that are combined to form an index fossil set.
But it's all fossils.
Huh?
It's all fossils, though.
Yeah, and I have a good response to your accusation that it's circular reasoning.
Okay.
The geologic column, the different layers in the column were originally dated via other means besides fossils. I mean, obviously that's the case, right? Because you can't just look at a trilobite and go, oh, you know, this looks like it's 530 million years old.
Well, let me explain that for the audience then. I cover on my seminar part 4 the history behind the geologic column, which doesn't exist any place on planet Earth. This geologic column was made up by some creationist, okay, who said they looked at the sedimentation rates in some of the rivers in England and France and saw how much sediment is deposited on an annual basis, and then based on that, they made a guesstimate of how long it would take to deposit certain sediment layers that are found all over the country. And then they said, oh, wow, well, that layer is so many hundred feet thick, so it would have taken so many million years. And then they assigned, they noticed, as you dig down through, in England, you find certain layers in sequence. You find a layer of chalk, and then you may find a layer of limestone, or a layer of something else, shale or something, right. And then they go over to France across the English Channel and find a similar thing and say, wow, look at this. The same layer must have extended all the way across. And it probably did. There's no question.